The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for Tuesday Talking Points. This is actually our inaugural Tuesday Talking Points for this season, and I'm really excited about some of the guests that are going to be joining us this year. So today we're talking about creating a solid foundation for sales success. So what does that mean? We're going to talk about the things that you need to do to prepare for successful opportunity generation, and then the things that you need to do to make sure that those opportunities are well managed once they've come into your pipeline. We've got a couple of experts joining us today to talk about that, and I think you're going to really enjoy what they have to say. Before we begin, I'm going to do a little bit of housekeeping. On the panel on the right, you will see a box where you can ask us questions. Go ahead and type in questions as you think of them. At the end of the content delivery portion of this webinar, I am going to read those questions out to the panelists, but I'm not going to interrupt them while they're speaking. So if you want to hold your questions till the end, that's just fine, or if you want to put them in as you think of them, I will get around to as many of them as possible. And if you're having any trouble hearing us, if all of a sudden the audio cuts out or there's any other technical difficulty, please just raise your hand and let us know so that we can handle it right away. My name is Carrie Simpson. I'm the CEO and founder of Managed Sales Pros. We've been in business for about 4 years now. We help MSPs identify new sales opportunities through outbound cold calling. And that's all very well and good. We were just nominated as one of Canada's top startups. We placed 25th on the list of 50 Canadian startups with 2-year revenue growth of 621%. And we achieved a lot of that revenue growth through cold calling. So I'm really excited to share that with you today. It was just announced on Monday, and I couldn't be prouder of our company and our team. Joining us today, I have Guy Baroan, who is the founder of Baroan Technologies, a longtime Managed Sales Pros client, and Erick Simpson, who is the Vice President and CIO of SPCInternational. Erick's been around the industry for a really long time, and I know that he's got a lot of value to share with you today. So Guy is sorry, I had a note for this. I have actually a lot of notes for this. Guy was the president of Ingram's Trust X Alliance Big Apple chapter, and he started his MSP in 1997. We've been working with Guy for a couple of years now. Guy, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and a little bit about Baroan Technologies, please? Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carrie. Yeah, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary, so every overnight success is 20 years in the making, so we expect to be an overnight success now. We are a pure managed service provider. We don't work with anybody on a regular project basis. Our sales are about 4 million. We have 3,100 endpoints under management, 16 employees that are all full-time. Our year-over-year growth has been averaging about 20%, and some of the markets that we service are healthcare, financial, staffing, agency, advertising, and really what we're finding is that a lot more opportunities are coming to us that have compliance and security requirements.
And how did you have to adapt for that? Can you tell me a little bit about the change that you had to make to begin supporting clients that were coming to you with those requests?
Well, what ended up happening was clients were approaching us with some of these requests, and what we were looking at is what are we doing for them already from a managed service perspective on an ongoing basis, and we just turned it up a little bit. So we were already doing a lot of the logging and the monitoring and the patching, the antivirus, the backups. So when they were being approached by some of their clients and requested to fill out forms about what they're doing for security, we looked at that as an opportunity and started to be able to say, hey, you know what? If they just added this service or if they just added this solution, they would be able to answer all these questions as a yes. And so we started talking to the clients, and they were open to implementing some of the solutions. And so we started looking at how do we do this for everyone? And little by little, we were able to start getting referrals from our clients, from other businesses that they were referred to because their providers were not able to answer these security or compliance type questions.
So you were able to successfully drive referral-based business from your current client base with a new offering? Is that fair to say?
Yes. Yes.
So were you able to go to your client base with this new offering and upsell them on it in addition to identifying a referral opportunity?
Yeah, absolutely. We meet with our clients for what we call BizTech reviews, quarterly business reviews. So we meet with them at minimum once a quarter, and some like to not see me as often, but it might be 6 months or at least once a year. The most is once a quarter, but being able to meet with all of our clients on a regular basis like that, it gives me an opportunity to really touch base on the historical activity that's been going on with their business. So we generate reports about the service activity, the trends. We talk about new services we're offering, what we're seeing in the market, what's happening in their business, what should we be aware of? Are they growing, moving, downsizing, anything like that? So it gives us an opportunity to really get in front of them and understand what they're doing and where some of the additional services that we have, that we've grown from the need, we can talk to them about possibly implementing.
That's fantastic. I'm looking forward to asking you a few more questions about that as we move on. Erick, thank you so much for joining us today. Erick is the Vice President and CIO of SPC International. Do you mind sharing with us a little bit about your past, Erick, how you came to SPC, and a little bit about how SPC helps the managed services market now?
Absolutely, and thanks for having me on, Carrie. I appreciate it, and thanks for attending, everyone, on today's webinar. Well, it's almost you think about how you end up wherever you are in life, and it's just a series of happy circumstances that led me to do what I do now and what I love doing so much, helping other partners grow their businesses. My background in the 90s is in the enterprise. I was in charge of building out staffing, training, and turning over call centers for Fortune 1000 organizations back in the day. Before we started our own practice, IT practice in 1997, this was a typical professional services, time and materials business. In 2005, we started to see the availability of PSA solutions and RMM tools that were affordable for small IT organizations like we were at the time. And so we invested in those, and using my background in building out call centers, et cetera, and service desks, we started our own NOC and service desk, and we began promoting flat fee IT maintenance services, what we call managed services today. So around about 2005, we became one of the first pure play MSPs in the industry. And as a result of finding very effective ways to price and bundle our services very profitably and sell and manage and maintain these services over time, we became very, very successful quickly and got noticed by some of our vendors that we were using. And they asked us if we would be kind enough to share our methodologies with their channels. And that's kind of what led us to transition. At the end of, that was 2007, we were acquired. And so we focused all of our energy and intention on helping other IT providers grow their businesses. We launched MSP University, which was the largest resource online for IT business improvement, with thousands of forums, tools, collateral, training videos. We did a lot of consulting then. We met Guy back in the day, so we're old warriors in the channel, if you will. We rebranded as SPC International, just simply to reflect a broader focus, Solution Provider Community International. We still do the same type of consulting and training, but now we've expanded beyond simply managed services, and we help partners with security practices, cloud practices, you name it, all the different services and solutions, help them grow their practices from a marketing, sales, and service delivery perspective, as well as operations. And we still maintain the largest archive of online training and support for our partners. So we're doing what we love, and it's very gratifying. And, you know, as I mentioned, just a series of happy circumstances that led us here.
Wonderful. Well, I've got lots of questions for both of you today, and I'm looking forward to getting into that. Is everybody ready to start? You don't need a buzzer or anything. I think we're going to be fine.
All systems go.
So, I mean, to be very, very transparent, Eric, I did not know until our brief conversation before the webinar today that you had successfully exited from an MSP back in the day. So I may end up asking you some of the same questions that I'm going to ask Guy right now. And I hope you don't mind being put on the spot to answer them.
Not at all. In fact, we also work with our partners to help prepare them for growth through acquisition or to exit. And then we also do post-merger integration consulting as well. So yeah, it'll be a fun conversation.
Excellent. So I like to provide as much value as I can along the entire MSP food chain. So I like to assume that of the people attending today, some of them are just starting their MSP journey and some of them are getting closer to the end. So one question I love asking guests is, how did you start your MSP? So Guy, tell me about the beginning of your entrepreneurship journey. How did you make the decision to launch your MSP? How did you find yourself in that area? I know that you have a business degree. What made you choose IT?
Basically, when I was working in college, I was waiting tables when I started college, and I waited on tables at this breakfast, brunch, and lunch place. And all I knew was I was just serving people, and I wanted to do a really good job with servicing clients. And I got to the point where I started testing actually different ways to be able to get bigger tips. And it turned into a little game I was playing with myself. And basically I learned the whole menu, and I started getting to know people by their names and backgrounds and all the different information about them. And what ended up happening was we would only work. I was only there because I was going to college full time, Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays. It was a breakfast, brunch, and lunch place, and people would come in, and I would actually have my own wait. There would be a wait for the restaurant, and then there would be a wait for my station at any given time. And so I started to build up all of these relationships with people. And I was invited to weddings, barbecues, vacations. It was pretty funny, actually. One of the people that I met was actually somebody who eventually in the future will be my business partner, Dimitri. He used to come in with his family and have breakfast on the way to work every weekend. So for 3 years, I knew him. I was waiting on he and his family. And then one day he comes in and he says, you know, I want to ask you if you would come work for me. I have this new business I'm opening up. It was a big amusement park, an indoor family entertainment center. And this was 1992. So I didn't know anything about the business. I was in my last year of college. I was a marketing and business major. And I said, yeah, let me come check it out. So I went to see it, fell in love with the opportunity and the place. And Dimitri and I had a great rapport. Basically, he gave me an opportunity to run that business like it was my own business, which was an amazing learning experience. We had 80 teenagers working for us at any given time. Dimitri went to the Disney University and brought back all of the Disney University training into the place, which is called Sports and Games, or was called Sports and Games. And he basically worked with me and we implemented it. So I was doing Disney level training that Dimitri brought back with all of our teenagers that we had working. And so I got an opportunity to really be able to manage all the people and work with them to make sure that the facility is running the right way. And the next year after the facility was open, we won an award for the best maintained and operated facility in the nation. So that was a very, very good recognition for all the work that we were doing. But what ended up happening was there were a big amount of birthday parties that were coming through there. So on any given week, there were about 135 birthday parties that we were doing. And it was a manual process. And so what happened was we needed to computerize the birthday parties. So we went through, we hired a company, and they took a CRM solution, customized it, and then they brought in a 5-node Novell network back in the day. And so Dimitri, who I was working for at that point, asked me if I would be willing to take over the network, or if I was willing to work with the company that's bringing it in to support the network. I said, sure, I'd love to. So I went to Novell classes at night, and I learned about the computers. And during that time, the internet was just starting to become popular. So I had all sorts of people coming up and asking me if I can help them with their computers, and they want to get a computer for the home. Would I be able to do that? So I started helping people with their homes. Little by little, I got more business and became busy. And then I had an opportunity to go out and open up a brand new facility. Dimitri and his business partner were going to sell sports and games. And I was offered an opportunity to go to Long Island to open up a huge, at the time it was the country's largest family entertainment center. So I said, yeah, let me go do this because, there might be something here for me in the future. So I move out there, I help set up the facility, it's being built. I hire the people, I train the people, I put in all these hours. The facility opens up, and 2 weeks later, they let me go. So I was, obviously I had bad taste in my mouth, and I said from that point forward, I will never work for anyone again. How could a company possibly do that to me? I move out there, I give everything, and then after that happened, they let me go. So I decided, I have something with the computers. I was really interested in it, and I really liked it. So I came back to the New Jersey area. I started working with different companies that I was working with before, and I started spreading the word saying, hey, I'm going to focus on the computer business. And the difference that I brought to the computer business at that point was that everybody that I knew in the computer industry had a chip on their shoulder. Whenever anybody wanted anything done with the computers, the computer people that were taking care of it were better than they were. So it kind of left a bad taste in everybody's mouth when they were working with them. So somebody's looking over one of the engineer's shoulder. They're like, what are you looking over my shoulder? Let me do my work here. For me, it was a completely different approach because coming from the environment that I was in with Dimitri and the guest service and treating somebody like a guest in your house rather than a customer really resonated. And I brought that into the computer industry, into the business. And I started getting referrals after referrals after referral. And I got to a point a year later that I could not do any more work on my own. I was up all hours of the day. I had all these opportunities. I never told anybody I couldn't do anything. At that point, Barnes & Noble was my place to go and learn the technology as quickly as I could possibly learn. So when somebody would ask me about a new server or new technology, I would tell them, let me get back to you tomorrow. I'd go to Barnes & Noble, spend all night, read all about the latest technology, figure it out, go back to them the next day, and they'd give me the opportunity. I'd learn it, make sure it worked, implement it, and then the next thing that happened is they started recommending me to other businesses. So again, I got to a point where I couldn't do any more business on my own, and I essentially found out I felt like I have a job. I didn't have a business because I couldn't bring other people in at that time. And the best thing that happened was Dimitri, who I worked so well with before, he was at a spot where he was leaving the amusement industry. So I asked him if he would come and be my business partner, and I offered him half of the business if he would come in and help build it like a business. So before Dimitri joined, I really just had a job. But once Dimitri joined, his involvement in the business was to create the processes and the systems and make it into a true business. So between the two of us, all these years we've gone through the eMyth Mastery Program. Everything that we do has a process and a system to get done, so we can have consistency in the results of all of the tasks that everyone here does. And that's really Dimitri's strong point. So that's actually how we started. So, we got busy to a point where I couldn't do anything else, brought Dimitri on board, and we started building the foundation to really have a good business.
So for anybody that's listening today, if you haven't had the opportunity to pick up a copy of the book eMyth, one of the things that Guy is describing in his business is something that they go into in what I would say a very high level way in that book. And they talk about how you can take your business from a job to an actual business. And it sounds like you were very successful in doing that. Erick, I'm going to segue into a question for you right now, because I know that you are a certified EOS implementer. So while we're talking about process and how you can develop process for your MSP, can you share with us a little bit about how you work with MSPs to help them to develop a process similar to what Guy is describing here? Like Guy was able to take his business from a one-man shop to a $4 million MSP. How can SPC, and more specifically, how do you help companies develop those processes?
Sure. Well, we really focus on three critical areas. And this, applies to any business when you're looking at the strategic aspect of building a business. And, Guy and Dimitri have done a fantastic job becoming students of process and business improvement strategies and techniques. eMyth is a great book. Good to Great by Jim Collins is a great book. There are lots of really fantastic books that put you in the correct perspective of building a business. So the three areas that, are the same in any business, right? No matter what we're selling, whether it's, IT services, whether it's widgets, whether it's hacky sacks, it doesn't matter. But we're looking at processes and procedures, we're looking at people, and we're looking at the product, right, that we sell or the service. So having a good, strong foundation when building a new business, you have to have a strong business plan and a strategy. You have to know where it is that you want to go, and then backward plan. So picking up from, the Entrepreneurial Operating System, which is EOS, a great book I'm going to recommend everyone on today's webinar is Traction. Traction is the foundation, or it's in book form what the process of EOS is. And, just from a very high level, it forces you to look at all of the critical drivers that grow a successful business, including people, including all of these things. And it allows you to focus on the most important things. So if you look at your business and say, where do I want to be 10 years from now? That's a question that can be different among many business owners. We work with partners, all over the world, candidly, that all have a different perspective. Some of them, they love what they're doing, and they've even told me, I will die at my desk. Okay, well that's not a very inspiring message. But if you want to not leave, now of course this changes, right? We hear that from folks, and as we age, other priorities come into play, right? Well, I used to say I want to die at my desk. People used to think that I would die at my desk, but I'm not that person anymore that I was 20 years ago. No, there's a definite strategy of what I want to do. So where do we want to be in 10 years? Do we want to sell? Do we want to grow through acquisition? Do we want to just continue doing what we're doing? Do we want to have a lifestyle business? Do we want to transfer the business to our employees or our heirs or our sons and daughters and whatnot? Everyone has to know what they want to be in 10 years, because without a strong vision, right, we won't be able to put together a plan to help get there. So we established the 10-year goal and the vision. What is the company going to look like in 10 years in a perfect world? Then we backward plan that. Okay, so what does the company need to look like in 3 years? And how do we do that 3 times to get to that 10-year goal? Okay, so if that's what the company needs to look like in 3 years, and we're talking about revenue, we're talking about number of people, we're talking about, maybe geographic locations or what we're selling, things like that. Then we can establish the 1-year plan. And the 1-year plan is broken down into 4 quarters, and each quarter has specific goals. In traction, in the US methodology, we call them rocks. So what are the rocks? These are the things that absolutely have to get done no matter what else we're doing that quarter in order to drive us toward that 1-year goal, right? So again, I'm leaving a lot out, but to give you an idea of how we help partners focus on what's important in the whirlwind of noise, right? Because we're all caught up in the whirlwind of noise. I mean, everybody's got 50 other things that they need to be doing every quarter. Right? But what are the most important things that drive us to those goals that are going to help us realize the outcomes that we've set for ourselves? And then next quarter we get the next series of rocks and the next series of rocks. And then there's a lot of other tasks and to-dos that fuel this transformation over time as well. But we lean heavily on some of those philosophies, and then we also bring to bear our specific knowledge in growing IT organizations. For the last 11, 12 years through our partners. So leveraging our proven processes for marketing, sales, service delivery, and operations, right? Leveraging strong vendor relationships that we can refer our partners to, like you, Carrie, right? So it takes a village to build a company like this, understanding who we need to hire when, how do we price and bundle our services for maximum profitability. And, one mistake that I see a lot of partners make as they're growing their companies is not to have that fully realized vision or plan, right? We're just kind of operating in a reactive mode, in many cases, without a plan, without a goal, et cetera. And then because of that, there's really no way to forecast and build consistent, controlled, sustainable growth. And without controlled, sustainable growth, we're not realizing the revenue that we need to grow the business properly. And this is when we start cutting corners on the people we hire because, we're hiring based upon what we can pay instead of hiring the best that we can get. And that's a big, big challenge for partners. And I see that as kind of one of the biggest mistakes that is made. We're hiring people based upon what we can pay because we're not forecasting our growth. We're not driving toward controlled sustainable growth. And a lot of that is leadership's desire to be profitable and not having the strategy and the plan to realize that profitability over time. So there are a lot of little dots that we connect when we work with partners, and we go through a really intensive discovery process just to really understand where we are today, where we want to be, and then develop that strategic plan to get us there. So hope that answered your question.
It does. I've been nodding my head and I'm sure there's lots of other people on the webinar today that are nodding theirs. I am watching the enormous sticky notes with my rocks from the time that we did our 1-page plan fall off the wall in front of me as you speak. So one thing I'd like to interject with here is, you can hire all the consultants in the world, right? You could bring in Erick, you can bring in a company like us. If you're not prepared to execute on those things, if your sticky notes are just falling off the wall, none of that is going to be helpful to you. So let's look at companies, say, in the middle of their journey right now. They're out of the startup stage, and maybe they didn't create that 10-year plan like you're talking about. Companies that have grown, maybe not because of what they're doing, not intentionally, but in spite of, right? So I find a lot of companies call us and they've gotten to the point where they're like, okay, well, we're a $2 million business now, and we have no idea what we're going to do next. The referrals have stopped coming in. So Guy, it sounds like you have a really good strategy for bringing in those referrals. Most MSPs haven't developed that yet. So they come to us and they say, we just really have no idea what to do next. So in that middle part of the journey, Erick, where would people begin? So they didn't make that 10-year plan. They've succeeded. Right. They've gotten to a point where they're a viable business, but the sticky notes are falling off the wall. What do they do now?
Yeah, no, and that's a scenario where we find a lot of partners in, right? Because you can get to, if with a little bit of luck, without having intentional marketing and intentional sales training and true sales professionals, we work with partners that have gotten to 1.5, $2 million, right around that point there. But then they hit that plateau, right? This is kind of, okay, what got us here can't get us there. Now we have to regroup and we have to be intentional about what we're going to do to grow the business. And this now involves, a dedicated marketing strategy, marketing budget, right? A consistent sales process. And again, hiring the right people is a huge part of this, or hiring the right resources to cover some of these things. Carrie, you and your team do a great job on the appointment setting piece, but how do we justify and find the budget to do that? And then more importantly, once partners begin an intentional lead generation program, investing in services like yours and then doing other things that take them away from just hoping for the next referral to come their way, right? They have to be prepared now to maximize those leads. Those are the most expensive things that they're ever going to invest in, is lead generation. Every lead is precious, right? Because think about it, if you close one lead for, an average $5,000 a month managed service agreement, just do the math on that, 36 months, right? And then typically managed services clients, if we do our jobs right, they typically renew at least one more time. So that could be 6 years of $60,000, right? That's a huge amount of money. So it's a very expensive lead that we are getting, that you're providing, or that we are realizing from any other marketing efforts. So we have to be prepared now not to do what we call burn those leads, right? We have to have a solid sales process. Our sales professionals need to be trained. And I'm going to recommend another book for everyone on today's webinar. It's called Secrets of Question-Based Selling, okay? That book teaches you how to ask the right questions and when to ask these questions in order to get the client to basically sell themselves. It proves value, it accelerates sales velocity, and shortens sales cycles. So once you have that lead, you have to be prepared to maximize the outcome of that lead. If your closing ratio is 25% from qualified leads, then we've got work to do, right? Now, I expect everyone to close referrals. So, partners always tell me, oh, well, we have, a 90% closing ratio. And I ask them, well, how do you get your leads? Oh, they're all referrals. Well, I expect you to close 90%. I expect you to close 100% of your referrals if they're qualified. That's a no-brainer. But when we're going out and we're setting these cold appointments for opportunities with prospects that don't know us, our marketing game has to align with our sales game, and they both have to generate the appropriate amount of interest and curiosity and build enough confidence and trust in us through our, consistent consultative sales process to help us win the business. So that to me is probably the most important part when we're talking about lead generation. And what we do with those leads is we have to be prepared to maximize every opportunity, and we have to do it in a way that's consultative and that creates distinction and differentiation between us and our competitors, right?
So let's chat with Guy again for a minute. Guy, these are all things that you have looked at, evaluated, tested, tried, gone back to the drawing board, evaluated, tested, and tried. At some point, you made a decision to work with an outsourced provider for some business growth, and you're also doing a really good job of creating more referral opportunities. Knowing what you know now, and we're talking, one of the reasons Guy has been invited to participate is Guy works with both SPC International and Managed Sales Pros. Guy was a client of ours several years ago, and I would say that if we had evaluated the results of our initial program with Baroan Technologies, our outbound prospecting program. At the time, we would have kind of hung up our hats and said, okay, that didn't go very well for us. So let's start back a couple of years ago when you initially decided to outsource. What did we do wrong, all of us together as a team? What would you change knowing what you know now? And obviously, we're going to do something a little bit differently this time around. Tell us a little bit about what we did wrong 2 years ago.
So you actually didn't do anything wrong 2 years ago. You guys did everything right. What we found 2 years ago, let me just give you a little bit of going back just a little bit more. So early on in our business, one of the things that we tried was we tested different ways to be able to get referrals and opportunities. And early on, I would say it's probably like 13 years ago, we had tested a telemarketing company that was local to us. And we got enough business we got so many new opportunities at that time that we had to actually stop the campaign because we were starting to get too much business and we weren't able to service everybody properly. So we stopped that. We absorbed the clients, grew our base, and then we went back a few years later and did it again and had the same result where we got so much business that we had to stop. And what we said was, okay, we absorbed the clients, we grew, the business is always evolving. 2 years ago, we were at the point where, okay, we're ready because we have what we believed was the right mix of the employees internally. We were testing a few different avenues to be able to generate new leads. And one of them was the telemarketing. So the companies that we had worked with in the past, they were no longer around. And I started asking some of the people that I'm friendly with that are other MSPs through the TrustX Alliance. I asked who is familiar with any telemarketing companies that are very good. And I got your contact information and your name, your company's name from several clients, several friends of mine. And the thing that drew us to you was that you have a specialty in the MSP space. So that was the first time I've ever heard of a company, a telemarketing company that actually specializes in managed service provider leads. So I thought that was excellent. And I wanted to just try you out to see how is this going to work for us. So we signed up for 2 months and we tested how that was going to go. And the campaign, we didn't expect the campaign to provide us with a lot of leads. I have to say we were pleasantly surprised with the amount of appointments that we were getting. We converted at the end of the 2 months one managed service account, and that one account over the course of since the last time that we had that call, it has paid off over 1,000% of what we had invested for those 2 months. So to Erick's point, it was extremely successful. They are expensive leads, but they can be very lucrative. When you look at this is just in 2 years, it's over 1,000%. They're still our client and growing. What we didn't want to do this time around, though, 2 years ago, was we realized that in order for us to be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are being provided with the campaign, we needed to fix a few things internally. And that was, like Erick said, we had to get the right people in place. So we were contemplating, do we hire a sales team or do we have a telemarketing campaign? And what is the better way for us to proceed? And so we decided rather than hiring salespeople to make cold calls, we would bring in people that were going to have specific positions and allow me to be able to step out and really focus on the sales side of everything related to Baroan Technologies. And so the choice was, we knew 2 years ago, we're going to come back to this. We have a good company that we know we had success with. We will come back, but this time when we come back, we don't want to have a campaign that we start and then get enough business and then we say, okay, let's stop the campaign. We don't want to do that. We have specific growth goals that we want to reach and maintain and continue. And so the reason that we came back now is now we're ready. We have the right people in place. Over the last 2 years, we've had to do a lot of changes internally to be able to get all the right people in place, and now we're ready. And that's why we came back now.
Well, we certainly appreciate you coming back, and thank you for sharing that very positive story about your experience with our company. Erick, how do you support Baroan Technologies currently? Can you share with us how you work with them?
Sure. Well, today, Baroan is a subscriber to our online IT Business Builder Training and Resource Center, and that's the online location at SPCInternational.com that houses all of the training that we've developed and put up there over the last 10, 11 years. So forms, tools, collateral calculators, pricing guides, white papers, etc., video training, testing, things like that. Aside from that, Guy, Dimitri, and I have a really good industry colleague relationship. So we're emailing each other back and forth, different ideas. Baroan has come up with a really interesting solution for the IT channel that we've been talking about and working on. So, you know, as we've grown over the years, the relationship has been more intense at some points, and then now we're both kind of at a very focused growth phase of our organizations, and now I would just consider Guy and Dimitri, you know, personal colleagues and friends in the industry.
I'm a huge fan of what I would describe as community connectors in the IT channel. I very much appreciate when people are prepared to share their knowledge, information, experience with each other and other people freely. So thank you both for joining us and giving so much of your time today to other people in the industry, in the market. Erick, I have a couple more questions for you. So we talked a little bit about Guy and how he used a referral-based strategy to build his business and added in an outbound strategy to build his business. And we talked a significant amount about process and how vital it is to have that process ready. Can you tell us the steps that you would recommend? And I think we're going to run out of time pretty quickly if we want to leave some availability for Q&A time here. And we do have a couple questions coming in. I'd like to just quickly talk about what steps would you recommend a client take prior to hiring someone, either a company like ours, if you were going to outsource, or conversely, and they might be two different answers, if somebody wanted to bring someone in-house to begin prospecting for them. So let's say a company doesn't want to hire managed sales pros, they want to do it themselves. What do they absolutely need to do prior to onboarding that person?
Yeah, so I will give you two brief, different answers for each scenario. For the first scenario, let's say they wanted to bring managed sales pros in, and they wanted to invest in your expertise and experience. Couple of things come immediately to mind. Okay, number one, understand what you want the outcome to be. What is the outcome that you want, and then make sure that it's realistic, right? So have a consultation call with Carrie to understand exactly what is within the realm of possibility. Sometimes, you know, we work with partners and I'm working with XYZ vendor and I'm not very happy, and I start asking questions and their expectations are completely unrealistic, right? So understand what a realistic success criteria is that you want to outcome. And number two, trust the expert. Trust the expert, right? You're going outside to invest in the expertise of someone else. Don't question and don't argue with the methodology that they bring to the table, because, you know, there's a reason why you're investing in them and a reason why it's easier to do so than to hire somebody and bring someone in-house, which I'll get to in a second. But trust the advice and trust the process, right? And work together as a team. A lot of partners when outsourcing critical services, including appointment setting, including even service desk or knock, they have this mental kind of firewall that says, you know, oh, it's our, you know, it's their marketing company or their appointment setting company or their service desk or they're not. No, it's not. No, it's not. It's your appointment setting team and your service desk team and your knock team. So have regular conversations, treat them just like they're right down the hall, even though they might be, you know, 3 time zones away. This is how to build strong, high-performing teams, is if you treat everyone as a team and review performance. And it's all about performance. Take the emotion out of it. You know, what are we doing right? Where do we need to work on? And work together on those solutions as a team. And then understand that the outcome may take a little time as we onboard and work out the little bugs and things like that. But again, trust the process, know what a specific success criteria is, and then work together as a team, and then take the expert's advice and put it into action. Now, if we're hiring someone to come in, you've got to have a very, very strong and specific onboarding and training process. Many times I see partners that hire someone and the first thing I ask them is, okay, so what's the onboarding plan? What's the training plan? Well, we're going to walk them around the office and introduce them to everybody. And, you know, we may have them shadow somebody for a week or so. And then that to me is like throwing somebody to the wolves, right? So understand that, you know, you're investing in a valuable resource here. And most cases where we've seen clients feel like they haven't gotten what they wanted out of a new person, whether that's in any position, sales or appointment setting or service desk or service delivery, we can, you know, most of the time tie it back down to the onboarding process and the training that they gave them, and then the performance metrics that they measure performance by, right? So set objective KPIs, not subjective, things that can be measured and tracked, right? How many calls made, how many appointments set, all the things that, Carrie, you and your team provide. But if you're doing it internally, you have to have the awareness to track and manage that person and coach them along. Remember, our job as leaders is to coach and create other leaders within our organizations, not to just throw somebody in, you know, in a closet with a headset on and, you know, hope for the best. You know, you've got to encourage, you've got to inspire, you've got to get to know these people, you've got to get to help, you've got to understand what they need. And when they make, you know, when they're challenged, you know, it's not their fault, it's our fault, right? What are we failing to provide? What are we not doing, right? And if the last thing that you're doing is trying to manage a new resource and you just don't have time to do that, then think about that. You know, you're bringing somebody else on and you want to set them up for success, and you want to give them the tools and the training and the onboarding and the guidance that they need and inspire them, right?
I think that is excellent advice, whether you're going to outsource to a company or bring someone in-house. We have a lot of clients come to us saying that they want a set it and forget it solution. And unfortunately, that just doesn't exist. Right at the beginning, people came to us and said, we want a set it and forget it solution. But what they really wanted was a solution where we updated them every 10 minutes on everything that we were doing all of the time. So we had to get a whole lot better at reporting and providing data to our customers that made them feel confident in their investment long before the first appointment hit the table. So we had to prepare and change and grow a lot as we learned more about the market that we were supporting. I mean, I didn't wake up one day thinking I'm going to start a managed services cold calling practice. I had a cold calling practice, and we were referred to a managed service provider, and that's how we became managed sales pros. All of a sudden, very much like how Guy was describing that his peers introduced him to us, other companies started introducing us to their peers, and we got a lot of referral-based business as well. Fortunately, we're pretty good at cold calling over here, so we don't have the challenge that some companies made when it comes down to how are we going to find new business. But I think we experience, and all new companies experience, that challenge of now how do we make our processes better? How do we undo the mess that we made the last 3 years, even though we got to this great point that we're at now? So, I mean, I can relate to a lot of the things that you shared today, Eric, and I'm sure there's other people on the call that can. We're running out of time, so I would like to start getting to questions. Eric, is there any, before we start into the Q&A, do you want to leave anybody with a particular thought?
I think just you know, I guess the best advice that I ever received when building our businesses is take intentional time on a weekly basis to work on the business and not in the business, right? And
Okay,
I
I want to stop you right there because I want you to better define that. I hear that sentence at every trade show I go to. I hear it on every webinar I sit in on. Tell us what that means.
So that means that you want to take time away from the office and work on strategy, work on the things that only you as a leader in your organization can do to grow the business. Because the minute we step foot in the door, we get hit with the whirlwind, and now we're reacting to all. And trust me, I've been in the industry long enough to know that everybody's got enough fires going on to distract them and to get complacent. And sometimes we're comfortable fighting fires. That sounds crazy, but it's almost like some people live for the drama, and it's hard to get them to stop what they're doing, refocus, and think about what it is that they're doing to build a business. What is the strategy? What are the vendor relations we need to create? What do we need to do to bring in more revenue? I mean, the things that build a business, not the things that get our hands dirty, but the strategic vision. Like I said, what is the 10-year plan? What is the 3-year plan? What are the 1 year? Where do we want to be in 1 year? Those kinds of things. And I don't mean come into the office early at 7 a.m. and spend an hour once a week doing it, because invariably you're in the office, the phone's going to ring, or you're going to get an email and things like that. You have to be, you have to have a discipline of carving out time. And it may be on a Saturday for a couple of hours once a week at home, but working on the things that grow the business, not maintaining the business, right? Not fixing stuff, but what is my strategy for growth? Who do I hire next? When do I hire them? Working on those things, evaluating the performance of the organization, running the company by the numbers, right? Be objective about these things. That's what I mean. And surround yourself with, other resources that can help you stay focused on strategy and not on the day-to-day operations of the business. That's what I mean.
I think that's excellent. An excellent way to describe that. We do have a couple of questions that are popping up, so I'm going to move into that part of the webinar now. Just to respect everybody's time, we've got about 7 more minutes here. So if I don't get to all of your questions today, I apologize. There will be some contact information for everybody provided. So don't feel like you can't follow up with the people that you want to engage with afterwards. If you've got a question for Eric or Guy or myself, please go ahead and table that. So the first question that was presented was this: how do you educate an eager to see results client so that they hold a balanced expectation during the onboarding process and the first 90 days? And I have asked the person who sent that question in to clarify that a little bit more. So are you asking how you would set reasonable expectations for an MSP, or are you asking how I set reasonable expectations for my clients, or Eric sets reasonable expectations for his? And I'm just waiting for the response to that. So when we onboard clients, and Alan has asked us to clarify that, we sit clients down and tell them not to expect magic. We take them through what the onboarding process is going to look like, and then we help them understand what going from an absolutely ice-cold prospecting list to an appointment will look like. And that's a pretty long answer. So Alan, if you don't mind, I will email you a more deliberate answer to that question, bearing in mind that we've only got 5 or 6 minutes left. We've got a few questions for our guests today. So I'm going to move on to the questions for Guy and Eric. Guy, one of the questions that popped up early on in the process was how did you ask current clients to pay more for additional services? So I'm assuming that's referring to the conversation we had at the beginning of the call where you had mentioned that you added a new service offering and you went to meet with your clients about it.
So normally what I would do when I meet with them is I'm reviewing the things that they should be aware of if it's the latest technology. And I'll just talk about something that is near and dear to everybody right now, and that's security and ransomware and breach protection and all of the things that are going on that everybody is talking about in the media and is front and center with information right now. So basically, I know it's on their mind. And so when I'm meeting with them, I discuss with them what they have in place right now. And I bring it up. I say, look, I don't know if you've heard about the most recent attack that was out there or the most recent breach, but some of the protections that you have in place, let's say from ransomware, we're providing this antivirus, this software, this malware solution. We're doing all of these things to protect it. However, there are new opportunities that we've been able to bring on board that you might be interested in. For example, the most important aspect of any kind of ransomware attack or breach is a lot of the users are clicking on links and providing details on how to log in. They're falling for phishing attacks. So there's specific, if I have a training solution, which I do, that we work with, I explain what they need to be aware of and why these things are happening and then how they can protect them. So I'm leveraging what I know they're doing with us, and then I'm asking them questions first about whether or not it's important for them in their business, because I already know what's important and not important to a degree, but I don't necessarily know what they're thinking. So I kind of try to measure the opportunity. And if it's a good fit, I tell them we have this offering and this is what the cost is going to be, whether it's per user, per month, or as a different service. And then I ask them, is that something that's of interest to you? And they'll either say, yeah, let's go ahead and do that, or they'll say, no, I'm not really interested. But then I just put it on the list for the next time. And if there's any more news or anything else I can add as additional reasons that they should consider it, I'll just bring that up during our next meetings. So at some point, it's always in front of them.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions for Eric. And Eric, these are all questions about what kinds of services you offer. So the first question is, does SPC have a product or solution for employee evaluations and performance reviews? And the second question was, does SPC offer consulting for onboarding? And I'm not sure if they're talking about onboarding new clients or onboarding new employees. So
Great. So the answer to both questions. So the first one again was, the second one was regarding onboarding. What was the first one?
Does SPC have a product or solution for employee evaluation and performance reviews?
Right. So the answer to both questions is yes. And you know, when we do evaluations and we do a lot of consulting on hiring, specifically for service and sales resources, and also team building. So the same tools that we use for evaluating the right, you know, who needs to get on the bus, we also use for team building to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats on the bus. And sometimes during these analyses, we find that some folks that we may be seeing some performance challenges with, they're simply in the wrong seat on the bus, and we make a recommendation to move them to a different seat on the bus, and then we see a performance improvement. And not to be, you know, go into a long description, but it's all based on human behavior and what we need to do to inspire and motivate our teams and understand how each individual on a team is wired and what motivates them, right? So yes, and then on onboarding, we have tons of training and resources for onboarding new clients, for onboarding new staff, et cetera. So along with checklists and processes and all of the above.
So we still have a few more questions, but unfortunately we're running out of time. I just want to assure the people that sent questions in for specific people that I will be delivering those questions to them. So Eric, there are a few more questions about the services that you offer and how people would go about accessing them. I'm going to forward those to you directly immediately after the webinar. So please, everybody who popped in a question, your questions will be addressed by the person that you're sending them into. SPC has generously provided some content for us today for everybody that has decided to give us some time and join us. So Eric, do you want to just review quickly what is available to the people that are on the webinar today or who might be viewing the webinar at a later time?
Sure. And you know, as a way of thanks for spending some time working on the business with us today, right? Rather than in the business, as we just talked about. If you just go to this first link here, that's .spc-intl.com/get-spc-book, you can download every one of my 4 best-selling books for the channel, as well as our super effective consultative IT services proposal template. This is a really effective sales template that I encourage everyone to use because it provides different options for the client, and it takes the client's decision away from should I do business with you and transforms that into how should I do business with you. So it's really, really effective in that way. There's a link to my LinkedIn profile. Please connect with me. And then finally, for those folks that have questions about the services that we offer, the last link at the bottom will take you to our consulting page.
That's fantastic. I'm just going to quickly pop through. I respect everybody's time. We're about a minute over, so I'm going to skip over the Managed Sales Pros portion of the wind down. I'm going to pop everybody's contact information up here. If there is somebody that you would like to get in touch with after the webinar, everybody's information is here, and I welcome you to do that. I will also be providing, somebody asked, would the list of books be available after the webinar? Yes, I will send you a list of all of the books that both Eric and myself recommended. And Guy, I want to say a super big thank you for you participating in this webinar today. Obviously, there isn't a lot of business development opportunity for you on a webinar like this, so it's very valuable to me and to Eric and to the whole market that you're prepared to come on here and share your experience with us. So thank you for attending. I'm looking forward to your project this year.
And thank you for having me.
And I think we are over time today. So Eric, thank you so much. Thanks for providing that for the viewers today. And I look forward to seeing everybody next week on Talking Point Tuesdays, same time. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.